Now here is the risk that the Browns had to take with I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan, brought to you by FanDuel, here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan, along with Ryan Smith. Welcome you to this week's show. Lee Owens, the legendary Hall of Fame football coach at Ashland University, Akron University, assistant to John Cooper at Ohio State, state championship high school coach. He's written a book. We'll have Lee on a little later in the show. We've got plenty to cover on this week's show. Obviously, college football kicking off with Texas, Ohio State. What a way to start the year. Next week, we'll be giving you our NFL divisional predictions. Ryan, a lot to talk about.
I'm excited, Bruce. You mentioned college football right around the corner this weekend. What a better guest, you can't have a better guest than one Lee Owens, a guy who has experience at all three division levels for college football. Thrilled to hear him join the program.
Can't forget about the Guardians and the conclusion of the baseball season as we head into this last month of the regular season. But I want to acknowledge playing in a very worthwhile golf outing to Hope for Kids for Geauga County, 10th annual Golfing for Kids. It was this past Monday, raising funds and awareness to improve the lives of abused, neglected, and at-risk children in Geauga County. We played it at Sandridge Golf Club in Chardon. Just a magnificent track. Angelo Corna, my good buddy, organized this, our group, and Chuck Barchi and Tom Graven filled out our foursome, and we did pretty well. We didn't have a loaded team, but we finished 10 under, and a great time had by all. All right, well, as we conclude the baseball season for the Guardians, they're all but out of it now, and I told you so 2 months ago at the beginning of July. Before the All-Star break, I told you that I broke down the mathematics for you. In order to catch Detroit overcoming that big deficit, meant that the Guardians would have had to have played near 700 percentage ball, and that's taking into consideration that Detroit would merely play about 500 ball. Now, that's a very tall mountain to climb. So the divisional race, in my analysis, has been done for a couple of months, despite the tease that we got from the Guardians when they got within range most recently, but especially for a team that struggles so desperately to score runs. Likewise, the wild card pursuit is all but over. As I've explained here on the show in the past, it's harder to make up ground in the wild card than it is to catch a team for the divisional championship, because you're competing against all the other teams from the other divisions that are also going for a wild card. So 5 games out as we record this show, as the Guards find themselves, means that they've got to beat out Tampa Bay, Texas, Kansas City, let alone Seattle or Houston, and New York or Boston. That's a lot of teams to climb over. So that 5 games is really more than that if you look at it by the math. Now, even though the Guards scored 3 runs in the first inning last night against Tampa Bay, we were no hit the rest of the way. No hit. Think of it. The 3-run first inning snapped a 28-inning scoreless streak in the first inning for Cleveland. The Guards had scored just 18 runs over the previous 10 games, going 1-9 in that stretch. However, here's the good news. 24-year-old lefty Parker Messick, in just his second major league start, went 7 innings pitching shutout ball, allowing only 4 hits, 3 of them singles, and he struck out 6 to earn his first big league win. It's not going to be his last. He retired the first 10 batters he faced. That's over a third of a way to a perfect game. Of his 98 pitches, 66 were strikes. He struck out the side in the sixth. This exciting kid throws a four-seam fastball. He's got a great changeup. That's his best pitch. He also mixes in a slider, a curve, and a sinker. He explodes off the mound in attacking the strike zone. His delivery makes it hard for hitters to pick up the ball and determine what pitch that he's throwing. I love what I'm seeing from this kid. As I've said numerous times here on the show, despite the realization of this season, I truly believe that the Guardians can come back next year and win the Central Division. And it's exciting, especially for me, to see these young pitchers. Messick, Williams, Bybee, Ciccone, and others. However, it's vital to improve the run production. Ryan.
You know, you say this about the Browns, Bruce, but there's always next year for the Cleveland Guardians. But it's the time to get these young guys up and get them experience in this last portion of the season. Parker Messick, that silver lining, a little bit of good news that we haven't had recently for the Guardians, looked tremendous. You mentioned the stats as well. No walks, which I thought was a huge part for Parker Messick in his second appearance, first win. Future's bright for that kid. And you mentioned, Bruce, that rotation next year could really be a good one for our Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, I think that's why they were willing to part company with Bieber, even though they might be able to get a franchise-friendly contract from Bieber because he's been so loyal to Cleveland. But then again, he is a free agent. Who knows what could happen on that front? And the fact that they got a real talented kid from Toronto in exchange who could in a couple of years be in this rotation. All right, we shift gears and talk about the Browns next. Bonus time with Drennan just getting started here on Big Play. Hi, Bruce Drennan here for my good friends out at Menor Nissan and Infinity of Akron and Infinity of Beechwood. My good buddy Ray Sminchak and now his new partner Jamie Pillar are the owners of these dealerships. And as you know, I drive two Menor Nissan Rogues and used to have the Murano, love them, took them to Florida, just great. Best offers on new Nissan purchases or leases. And they have impressive selection of certified pre-owned and top used cars. Menor Nissan prides themselves on having a knowledgeable and friendly sales team who will help get you into fuel-efficient, innovative, and stylish models to suit your needs. Their superior credit program and helpful finance team will help you every step of the way. Menor Nissan, of course, located minutes off I-90 in beautiful Menor, Ohio. To check out their latest selection and offers, visit menornissan.com. That's menornissan.com. I strongly recommend Menor Nissan, Infinity of Akron, Infinity of Beechwood. I love you, Menor Nissan. Boy, am I excited about the start of the college football season. It's actually already underway. Iowa State and Kansas State got it going last week, but I'm really excited. Ohio State and Texas, we're going to have a ball. And a couple other big games, LSU and Clemson, Alabama, Florida State. So we get it going this weekend. I mentioned Lee Owens will be joining us in the next segment. We're going to talk to him about his book and college football in general. But in this segment, I want to talk about the Browns. Not only did the Browns trade Kenny Pickett to Las Vegas for that fifth-round pick next year, which, by the way, is what the Browns had to give up to get Pickett along with DTR going to Philadelphia. But on cutdown day, the Browns announced that Dillon Gabriel will now be the backup quarterback to Joe Flacco on the depth chart. Sanders will suit up as the emergency quarterback and third on the depth chart. I don't think this is a surprise. After all, the Browns drafted Gabriel in the third round. They drafted Sanders in the fifth round. And Gabriel clearly outplayed Sanders in that final preseason game against the LA Rams. I think that was quite obvious. I predict that we'll see both of these backup quarterbacks at some point in the upcoming season. After all, the question to you is, don't the Browns have to find out if they have their quarterback of the future in either Gabriel or Sanders? Or do we once again have to keep a close eye on all these quarterbacks on the college level that'll be coming out and eligible for the draft next year? By the way, thank God. Thank God. The Browns dumped kicker Dustin Hopkins. My God. We could put Nick Padone in there. That would be better. A better chance of kicking an extra point than this bum. My God. All right, Ryan, go ahead.
You know, Bruce, it was written in the stars they were going to get rid of one of Flacco, one of Pickett, and obviously due to the hamstring injury and Joe Flacco playing well, that made it clear they traded Pickett. It allows Dylan Gabriel to be that cemented backup, and I think that was the right choice by the Cleveland Browns. Dylan Gabriel looks more NFL ready, and that's kind of what the Browns expected with a guy who's played multiple, I believe 5 years in college throughout 3 different programs, and you mentioned that final preseason game, he had a great 2-minute drive. I think it was the right move, but as you mentioned, Shedeur fans, myself included, it's going to be okay because as we know the season goes, I do believe both rookies will get the chance to play eventually. But Bruce, to go back real quick to your one question, it's such an interesting discussion, is are the Browns going to find out if one of these guys are a franchise quarterback? And my response to that is I don't even know if there's a scenario that Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders go out there, no matter how good they look, that stops them from still taking a quarterback in the first round next season. Are they really going to rest their laurels on a 3rd and 5th round quarterback, regardless of how good they play? If I was a betting man, Bruce, I would say they're 100% going to take a quarterback next year in the first round.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people think that's because they passed on Hunter to get that extra draft choice, which I don't necessarily think will be a high draft choice. You'll want to check out our show next week. I'm going to make my divisional predictions for you in both the AFC and the NFC. And the reason I say that, I'm kind of giving you a little tease. I think Jacksonville's going to be a very serious contender. I mean, this is do or die for Trevor Lawrence. Let's face it. He can't blame Urban Meyer anymore. And the fans can't. This is it. He's got a real good back in ETN, and now he's got this weapon in Hunter. So I don't necessarily think that'll be a high pick, but getting back to the Browns, if the thought is to use that pick with our own pick to get the quarterback of the future, remember this. Not just Manning is going to be eligible in that draft, but the kid from LSU, the kid from South Carolina. It's going to be a more enriched class of quarterbacks available in next year's draft. So even if they hadn't made the trade, they still would have gotten one of them, you would think. So I hope that passing on Hunter doesn't come back to haunt the Browns. As you know, after the draft, I went crazy. I thought that was a catastrophic mistake. Bottom line is this. I don't care how good this defensive lineman from Michigan turns out to be. How many touchdowns is he going to score? We need weapons. Hunter is a weapon. Ryan.
There's also a scenario, Bruce, going to next year. Let's say Arch Manning does declare for the draft and he's the cemented number 1 overall pick. There's a scenario the Browns could then trade both of those first-round picks to get up to that number 1 spot. Now, is that the right decision for the Browns to make? Do we really want to move up to number 1 and trust the Browns brass to identify that right quarterback, even if it does seem like an easy home run pick in Arch Manning? That's also a discussion that I could see the Browns heading into when we get to the draft next April.
All right, we shall see, but you don't want to miss next week's show. We'll really dive into all of the NFL as we get ready for the start of the season and give you our thoughts on all of the divisions. All right, when we come back, it's time to welcome Lee Owens, who has written a book, my old pal, one of the greatest coaches in Division II college and high school as well here in the state of Ohio. That's next on Bonus Time here on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows, energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
As I mentioned earlier in the show, proud to welcome my friend and a great, great coach, Lee Owens, to our show. Hall of Fame coach, 39 years of coaching, was the head football coach at Ashland University from 2004 to 2022, just retired recently. Led the Eagles to numerous Division II playoff appearances. And, of course, prior to Ashland, Lee was the head football coach at Akron University from 95 to 2003. He was the tight ends and offensive tackle coach under John Cooper at Ohio State from 92 through 94. And as a high school head coach, he led Crestview High to an undefeated 10-0 season in 1981. He was the head coach at Lancaster for a year and head coach at Massillon, Washington from 1988 to 1991. Lee coached Galleon High School for 4 years and led the Tigers to a 14-0 season in 1985, and that year he won the Division II Ohio State Championship. He's written a book. It's called Spirit of a Team. Successful CEOs and coaches share their strategies for achieving excellence. There's the book I'm showing you on camera, and I welcome my old friend Lee Owens. How you doing, pal?
Good, Bruce. I really appreciate the opportunity to be back here with you today and share some thoughts on this book and just to kind of catch up. You know, the only time I ever see is on the golf course. It's nice to see you in the workplace.
You know, you didn't write this book about yourself. I found it very interesting in that it's more about all of these CEOs and coaches that have touched your life and what they've meant to you and their achievements. Tell us about it.
Yeah, there were some publishers, and I had actually an agent who was like, "No, we want a memoir. We want to hear about your career." I don't want to go. I was here. It's kind of like what you went over earlier. I said I'd rather do it in a way where, you know, I was at 6 different schools where they hired me to turn the program around, and we turned it around. All 6 programs had winning records, had championship seasons, and I would like to tell the story about how we did that. But I'd like to tell it through some of the great players I coached, some of the great coaches I coached with, and some of the businessmen I met who really made it possible as great boosters to our program. And so it made for, I think, a real interesting format and has been really well received so far at this point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read, and I want to start with Larry Karras, the legendary coach at Mount Union. I've had the privilege of interviewing him when he was in his heyday. Boy, is there any more successful coach on any level in the country?
We passed a resolution. We were on the AFCA board together that we could never mention Larry's record when all the other coaches were in the meeting, because it just, you know, basically it diminished anything we'd ever accomplished. But if you go through the book, you have a high school coach, Nate Moore, and I tell his story with the national championship win down there. You have Larry Karras, the winningest coach at any level of football all time, you know, Division III football. You have a guy like Luke Fickell, who's as prominent of head coach in the Power 5 as there possibly is. And then you have a guy like Matt LaFleur at the Green Bay Packers, who's the head coach there. Both Luke and Matt, their first full-time coaching jobs were with me. Matt at Ashland and Luke at Akron, believe it or not. Matt went from Ashland to the NFL in about 10 years. That's how fast that's the track he was on.
You know, it really is a fraternity. I mean, we in broadcasting look upon it in the same way. It's nothing to call contacts we've made in San Francisco or Atlanta, St. Louis. It's really the same way in coaching, is it not?
It really is. It's a big fraternity. It's a great network of coaches. And it's fortunate enough when you get in that, I was lucky too, because I was a high school coach and John Cooper at Ohio State took a chance on a high school coach. He was getting a little pressure in the state from all those Buckeye alumni. Coach Bruce hired high school coaches. Coach Cooper, why can't you hire high school coaches? And so the problem you have with that, Bruce, if he hires me, he's going to piss off, a lot of other high school coaches out there. Hey, about Chuck Kyle at Ignatius, for example. And so, it was a tough call for him, but we had a great relationship, and he hired me to coach down there, and it really, allowed me to get my foot in the door of that coaching fraternity. There's no better place to do it in Ohio State. And when you get down there and all of a sudden you're looking around and you're recruiting Corey Stringer to play right tackle for you and Orlando Pace to play left tackle for you. And, you've got Ricky Dudley playing tight end for you. You turn out to be, first, a pretty good recruiter, second, a pretty good coach. Talk about that recruiting. Did you not recruit Eddie George? Eddie George was my first recruiting trip, and I tell this story in the book. I had just got the job at Ohio State, and Bill Conley, the recruiting coordinator, and Coop said, somebody needs to go down to Fork Union and visit with this guy. Two things. Now, make sure you tell him we promised him he could be a tailback, because he wanted to go to Penn State and play for Joe Paterno, but Joe Paterno said, no, you're a tight end, defensive end. And second of all, just make sure you don't mess this thing up. It might be your last recruiting trip. So that was my first trip to see Eddie George and make sure. I said, "You want to be a Buckeye?" And he goes, "Yeah, right." He was ready to go right then. He'd had enough marching and all the other stuff down there. But that experience he had at Fork Union was big for him. It turned him around in terms of his grades and his discipline and his work ethic. I really highlight Eddie George in that chapter I have on work ethic because, as John Cooper said, and many others have said, no one has ever worked harder in their career than Eddie George. And of course, right now we're seeing him coach up there with the BG Falcons that first year.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you more about recruiting in the next segment when we get into the NIL and all, but let me hold that thought. Talk about Matt Collig. You've got him in the book, and we have a personal affiliation here at the Big Play Sports Network because we have been the media outlet for his Collig Company's tournament for the seniors at Firestone just recently. We were with Matt, and he's really quite a story, too.
He's an extraordinary young man. And when I replaced Jerry Faust at Akron, I wanted to run off the old team. There was all kinds of issues on the team. And the only two guys I couldn't run off were Matt Collig and his right-hand man, Chris Coonahan, who was his roommate. And he's still his right-hand man with Leafilter today. But it was interesting. Matt was the returning quarterback, and he knew when I came in, I was going to bring in some hotshot freshmen, and I was not going to play a senior quarterback my first year. So he went from returning starting quarterback to the scout team quarterback. But no one worked harder on the team. No one was, more determined or had a better effort or had a better attitude. He just was not going to quit. That's his attitude. That's how it is. I don't know if you read the one story in the book. We're playing Kansas State, my first or second game at Akron. And Coach Snyder, Bill Snyder, I think they beat us like 73-0. He comes up to me after the game. "Can I come in the locker room and talk to your guys?" I don't know. I'm a young coach. So he walks in the locker room and he tries to pep our guys up. Matt Collig told me in an interview for this book, he said, "You have no idea how upset I was, how pissed I was that some opposing coach came in our locker room and tried to cheer us up after just kicking our butts." But that's Matt Collig. It was a great story. I didn't even know the story before we actually put this, wrote this book.
Actually, a class act by Snyder to ask you that, and what a legendary coach he has been in his great career too. Got to ask you about Sue Ramsey. Before I read the book, I had no idea about her. She was an NCAA Division II National Basketball Coach of the Year in 2012.
Yeah, and we went through 10 chapters of building structure, building a team. And at the very end, he said, we really don't have any top-notch female coaches or CEOs. We've known a lot of them. And I said, let's write a chapter on legacy at the end. Just not just even legacy of great teams, but legacy in life in general, because that's who Sue Ramsey is. Well, first of all, legacy with great teams, Bruce. As you know, when Sue retired after winning national championships, she turned it over to Robin Freilich, who went on to Bowling Green, who's now at Michigan State, and Robin won national championships. And now she's turned it over to the coach who was there prior to that, and she's winning national championships, Doherty, Carrie Doherty. But anyhow, the success that they've had and the legacy of one coach to another coach is really critical.
The spirit of a team. Successful CEOs and coaches share their strategies for achieving excellence, by Coach Lee Owens and assisted by Larry Phillips. Forwarded, by the way, by Jim Tressel. Highly recommend the book. We'll do more with Lee in just a moment here on Bonus Time with Drennan on the Big Play Sports Network.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home by visiting pureavcorp.com.
Hall of Fame coach Lee Owens is with me. The spirit of a team. Successful CEOs and coaches share their strategies for achieving excellence. That's the book. Lee, in the book, you talk about the NIL. And with recruiting, we touched on Eddie George. When Saban retired, part of his reasoning was that he used to go into a living room, recruit a kid, talk about developing that young man into an adult, maturing values. Now you walk into the living room, how much money do I get?
Yeah, and I get into that point very early in the book, because in my preface or introduction to the book, I talk about motivation and defining motivation and what it takes to motivate. And I really get to a point in the book where it has to be more than just money. It's never going to be enough. There's never enough money to buy a championship. There's never enough money to get a team or an athlete to work to the level they have to work to achieve excellence. And today it's become more about money than anything else. When we recruited, we built relationships. And when we recruited, we tried to convince the young men that we were going to come together as a team. We were going to have a great culture, and together we were going to grow and win championships that would mean something, that we become a team of destiny, a team of significance, a team of purpose, a team that would be a lesson for everyday life. All those thoughts are going right now because it's who has the most money and how much money can you give me. Some guys are getting millions of dollars before they ever get on the field, Bruce, as you know. And you think all that stuff only happens in the Power Five. No, all the way down to the MAC, and even my last year at Ashland, all the way down to Division II. Guys were expecting to be paid, and the scholarship wasn't enough. The opportunity for a college education wasn't enough. The opportunity to play college football didn't measure up to what their expectations were. I knew at that time I was done, because I don't want to get too long here, Bruce, but when you start to add that with the portal and the opportunity for athletes just to say, I'm out of here, it really made things difficult. Not only did we have to get them money, recruit them to get there with money, but then we had to every single day make sure they were happy, or they're going to go see the AD, get in the portal, and they leave.
Yeah. The preseason number 1 and 2 are playing this Saturday, Ohio State and Texas, obviously. You know that the preseason number 1 ranked 1 and 2 teams have not won a national championship in more than 20 years. 6 different teams have won the national title in the past 7 years, and it's attributed to the because of the transfer portal and the NIL. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
I don't think it's healthy. If you really examine Ryan Day's national championship team last year, Bruce, I know you look at this stuff closer than I do, but yes, did he use NIL money? Absolutely, more than anyone else. But for the most part, he used that money to keep that team he had built together, to keep those great players he had recruited and the relationships they built on that team and the culture they had on that team together. There were a few pieces he brought in to help, like we always do, but the majority of his money was spent on the players that were already there. I think that was brilliant, because when you start all over and you bring in all new pieces, you can't put all that together. That can't fit in just a summer camp or a preseason and be ready to kick things off and go on to a national championship. In my opinion, I think that was why he was able to make, the run he did after the loss to Michigan.
This is filtered down even into the high school level for kids that are nearing graduation, that are very talented and foresee that they can make money going to a college. Does it not apply there too?
Absolutely. Many of those high school players have agents right now, believe it or not, which just happens. We have a high school player down here. He's a great kid, Nathan Bernhard. He had opportunities to go to a lot of Big Ten schools, but the one Big Ten school he wanted to go to was Ohio State. That's the one school he didn't get offered at. So Appalachia State recruited him. This is how Nathan's going to Appalachia State. He's turned down a lot of Big Ten schools, major Big Ten schools. I don't want him to go over the list, but here's why he's going to App State. They sold him on the fact, not come here and stay here and graduate from here. Come to App State, be our starting quarterback, win a championship, and then Ohio State will recruit you. Ohio State's going to recruit that quarterbacks in college who are already proven, not the young man out of high school.
Is there any turning back? I mean, they've got to do something. I certainly don't have the answer. Are there any remedies to at least buffer this or come to some sort of sanity, or is it just going to just prolifically increase?
Well, it's scary right now because it's the government's got involved. It's become political. And you and I both know anytime things become political, they just get more complicated. There's always two different sides to the story. And it's not always what's in the best interest of the athlete, what's in the best interest of the sport. That really concerns me. And when you allow politicians to make the decision on what's going to happen in the future of college football, I'm not sure I want to be a part of that.
Lee Owens, our special guest on today's show. The spirit of a team, successful CEOs and coaches share their strategies for achieving excellence. More with Lee in just a minute on Bonus Time here on the Big Play Sports Network.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Lake Spur Marketing, connecting your brand to the right customers. Visit lakespurmarketing.com today.
My old pal Lee Owens, who has written this great book, Spirit of a Team, is joining us here on the show today. Lee, so much emphasis on new helmets, safeguarding the players in football. They come up with new renovations, it seems, every single year. And we still keep seeing concussion after concussion after concussion. You know, how in heaven's name in the Newt Rockne era and before did they play with those plastic things they wore?
Yeah, it's, one of the real scary things about football, as you know, is the injury. But in reality, when you look at the stats of the sport, it's still safer than riding the bike all summer long, and on the neighborhood streets. It's still safer. So, but in reality, is also one injury is too many. One concussion, one young man who's paralyzed is far too much. Or the long-term effects of not just the one traumatic injury, but compounding the beating on the helmet, the beating on the head through college or through the NFL. I think they're doing a wonderful job with the technology. I think the helmet makers now become more and more expensive, obviously, for high schools and small colleges, but they have put great thought and technology into making these helmets as safe as possible. And they've also put a lot of thought into, eliminating as many of the hits in practice and as they possibly can to not allow that buildup of those compound those injuries and over time.
I want to ask you about some of the Division I schools as we approach this season with the opener, Ohio State and Texas. But what is the state of Division II and Division III? Is it a healthy state in this day and age?
I've always thought, that Division II football, I played Division III, I coached Division I, but I spent most of my career in Division II. So I'm a bit biased. I really like that level of football. I like the fact that we've got some guys in Division I that are going to go on and play in the NFL like Adam Shaheen did for us from Ashland. And most of our guys on the team are getting half their school paid for, at least half a scholarship. There are a few that get all their school paid for. But there are also a lot of guys on our team that are working their butt off to earn more scholarship money every day or academic money all the time. So I always thought there was a good balance between, in Division III, unfortunately, those youngsters don't get scholarship money. In Division I, they get everything given to them. But I think the balance between we're going to get some good players, we're going to be able to give them some money, but most of those guys are still paying a part of their school, so they have some ownership in their education. But to answer your question, short answer, I don't think football has ever been more popular, and college football in particular, than it has right now. But I don't think it's ever been in a more time where you worry about what the future is than right now.
Right. Are you in favor of the 12-team playoff? And the reason I must put a caveat on that, does it not diminish the importance of the regular season? My point being, Michigan beat Ohio State again last year. What did it mean? Ohio State knew they were still getting in the playoff, and what do? They go and they win the national championship.
I think we're at a good number. I think before, when it was 4 teams, there were a lot of really good teams left out, like what happened to Ohio State. But I don't know if I want to add any more teams to it. I think you have to take care of those college champions.
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt. They're talking about going eventually in a couple of years, maybe to 28.
I can't see it happen, because then you really diminish the quality of the season, the importance of the work that you put together during the season. And as an example, Bruce, you follow high school football like I do. They got to a point in high school football where they're putting more teams in the playoff. They were putting 2 and 3 win teams in the playoffs that didn't want to be there. Now, I think the Ohio High School Athletic Association decided to cut back on that again. From my understanding, that's going to happen. But we don't want to get to that point. You have to fight to get there and earn it, and let those conference champions be a part of it for sure, and then the highest ranked teams past that.
You and I may differ on that. We talked off the air, Lee and I did, about this to the audience. I want to inform them, and we may have opposing views on this. I don't see, with the expansion of the playoffs, the relevance of the postseason conference championship. In other words, just take the top 12 ranked teams. But you disagree with that, Lee.
You know, I don't think I'm wearing a Ohio State Big Ten championship ring right now. And that was a long, long, long time ago. But I'm going to tell you what, those rings to those young men who play in those conferences are really significant. Now, I know those conferences have grown. They've changed. Their identity's different. And maybe the feelings they have today are a lot different than the feelings we had. But when you walked into Ohio State, your number one goal wasn't to win a national championship. Your number one goal was to get a pair of those gold pants. You beat Michigan, and to get a ring saying you were Big Ten champions. Maybe times have changed, Bruce, and you might be right, but I sure hate to see that conference championship be diminished.
Well, see, my point is, you could have a 3-loss Iowa team playing an undefeated Ohio State team and pull off the upset and thus qualify for the playoffs. Ohio State's still going to get in, but that Iowa victory may deprive some other school that's more deserving with a better record and a better schedule from getting in. That's really my bottom line.
That's good. It's a good point. And I know you can argue it from here and there. I hope we don't expand it any further. I think we're at a good point right now. And just let it rest for a while, see how it works itself out.
All right, Ohio State, Texas. Give us your prediction, Coach Owens.
Well, I'm going to go with the experts. I think the Bucks win by 2 or 3 right at the end of the game. So I think it's going to be a hell of a game, a great game for college football. It's going to be unbelievable atmosphere in Columbus, Ohio. I'm going to be down there doing a little radio promo for the book, but I don't think anyone's going to care about my book at that point.
I strongly recommend it. But how's Ashland going to be since you retired? I play in the golf outing with you down at Ashland Country Club every year. How's the team going to be?
Coach Doug Geiser, Bruce, has done a great job. He won a bowl game the first year. He won the league championship last year, and he's picked to win the league championship this year. So I feel really good about what he's done, that staff's done, and those players there on the team. And so, they just keep it rolling. That's hope. You hope when you leave a place, that's what it happens. That's about legacy. We hope that happens, and Doug Geiser is the right guy to do it.
Picking up right where you left off. The spirit of a team, successful CEOs and coaches share their strategies for achieving excellence by Lee Owens. There's the book right in front of you. How do they get the book real quickly, Lee?
Yeah, they can go to Amazon, Lee Owens, Spirit of the Team, pull it right up and click it. So they're ready to go. They'll send it to them.
Hit them straight, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you. Always fun, Bruce.
All right. Ask Bruce segment next on Bonus Time. Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com today.
Now, before we get into the Ask Bruce segment, I don't know about you, but I am so sick of seeing Kelsey on his knees proposing to Taylor Swift. They actually got engaged 2 weeks ago. This was all for show. I mean, come on. Enough is enough with all these celebrity relationships.
Bruce, I want to say, get ready, because I've had this prediction for over a year now, and now that they're finally engaged, I think they're going to live stream. Some streaming service, Netflix, you name it, is going to pick up a broadcast of their wedding live, and it's going to blow up over America, and honestly around the world. It'll be like a royal wedding. It'll be America's first royal wedding.
I don't gamble anymore except on NASA, with my golf league in my scrambles. But what do you think we should make the over-under on how many years that marriage will last?
God. I don't want to get attacked.
You don't want to touch that one, huh?
No.
I'll throw it out. All bets are off. All bets are on. Here's the one that killed me, though. CBS White House correspondent Olivia Rinaldi. CBS White House correspondent. Got the news. She's doing a stand-up in front of the White House. And she's, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh, the ring is ginormous. Is that in the dictionary?
I've never heard that one.
Ginormous. I feel like Paul Revere releasing this information about Taylor and Kels. Oh my God. No wonder CBS's news ratings are in the tank and going deeper and deeper into the toilet. All right, fire away.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce. John Means struggled in his rehab start in Columbus. Do you think we still see him in Cleveland this year?
Why not? Got nothing to lose. He's an experienced major league pitcher and a real good one. He knows how to pitch in the majors, and that's just going through the motions to get himself in shape. And there's another guy. You know, we talked in the first segment about the rotation for next year. We can't forget about John Means. He's a veteran who was fabulous with Baltimore. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce, is catcher the biggest position of need in the offseason for our Cleveland Guardians?
Yes, I'm glad that question is asked. Thank you. I do agree. I've got concerns about Naylor. How long do we go with him? The offense has got to be improved, and it's just not there. Hedges is a good defensive catcher and a mentor and clubhouse presence, but come on, you got to score runs.
Alrighty. Hey, Bruce, can you predict the 5 starters opening day next year?
No. And I don't think Vogt or anybody else within that organization or the front office can either. Obviously, that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. You've got so many candidates that have experience or are ready to emerge out of the minors and claim a spot. This Messick kid coming out of nowhere. Now, he's not really coming out of nowhere. He's a highly touted prospect in our organization. But to come out of nowhere and get his first taste in the major leagues and pitch like he has in these first 2 outings? So, no, that's a really I'm glad that there's no answer to that because that's a really healthy thing for our team.
Alrighty, last one for you. Hey, Bruce, what are your updated overall thoughts on Tanner Bybee and your thoughts as well on him showing frustration in the dugout on Monday's game?
I think I think he's frustrated over the year, the way it's gone, his own performance, especially after a very successful year last year when he first emerged. I like seeing that emotion. Maybe it was ill-timed coming out of the game in the fashion that he did because he didn't have a good outing, but he's a competitor, and that's what we want. I like him for the future. And I'd like to say we have more time, but we don't. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. Bonus time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. Have a great week. Enjoy all the college ball. Don't miss next week's show, our divisional predictions. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio, and I love you, Cleveland.